My father abandoned me for years and was the perfect dad to his stepdaughters, paid their $50K universities while I went into debt. But when my wedding came, he begged for an invitation, and my answer destroyed him. I'm 27 years old, I work in digital marketing, and I just got back from my honeymoon like 2 months ago. But there's something that's been eating at me since before the wedding, and I need to get it out because, it's something I've literally carried my whole life. My father, Richard, basically abandoned me emotionally for as long as I can remember. And what happened with my wedding was just the straw that broke the camel's back. After years and years of feeling like I wasn't enough for him, I guess I should start at the beginning. I grew up with my sister, Emily, who's 2 years older than me, and our parents. But the truth is, I never really felt like I had a real father. You know what I mean? Richard was always there physically. Like, he lived in the same house and everything. But emotionally, it was like we didn't exist. I remember as a kid I was always trying to impress him. You know, I'd get good grades, participate in school activities, anything to get his attention. But he always found something to criticize. If I got a 95 on a test, he'd ask me why it wasn't 100. If I won an award at school, he'd tell me I shouldn't settle. It was never enough. And it was the same with Emily. He always made us feel like we were a burden, like taking care of us and being with us was this terrible obligation he had to endure. My mom tried to compensate. Honestly, she was the one who was present. She was the one who hugged us when we cried. She was the one who went to our school events and stayed until the end, while Richard would arrive late if he showed up at all, and leave early because he had work or was tired or whatever excuse. I remember perfectly the day of my middle school graduation. I was like 15 years old and I was super excited because I was going to give a speech in front of the whole school. I had worked on that speech for weeks, and my mom was in the front row recording everything with her camera. But my father arrived after I had already finished, literally 10 minutes after I came down from the stage. He told me traffic had been terrible, but I knew he just hadn't made me a priority. That night I cried so much that my mom stayed with me until I fell asleep, stroking my hair and telling me I was special, that he just didn't know how to show it. But by that point I knew the truth. I knew he just didn't care about us. When I was 16, my parents got divorced, and honestly, it was a relief. I know that sounds terrible to say, but the fighting had been constant for years. My mom basically raising us alone while Richard hid in his work or his office. And when they finally separated, part of me thought, well, maybe now that he doesn't have to deal with mom, he'll have more time for us, you know? Like maybe the problem was their marriage and not us. How naive I was, seriously. The first few months after the divorce, Richard moved to an apartment like 20 minutes away, and he was supposed to see us every other weekend, but he constantly canceled. It was always the same thing. Important work, last-minute meeting. He wasn't feeling well. Whatever. Emily and I got used to not counting on him, and when he did show up, it was awkward because he didn't know what to do with us. He'd just take us to the movies or out to eat somewhere and spend the whole time checking his phone. Fast forward like a year after the divorce. I was 17 and Emily was 19. And it turns out one day, my aunt, my mom's sister, calls us all upset telling us she saw Richard on Facebook with pictures from a wedding, his wedding, with a woman named Michelle. We had no idea he was even dating anyone, much less that he was getting married. We found out about his wedding through social media. Can you believe it? And the worst part, what really hurt me to tears that day, was that in the photos, there were 2 young girls in bridesmaid dresses, Michelle's daughters, Isabella and Natalie, who were like 15 and 17. At the time, he had invited his future stepdaughters to his wedding, but hadn't even told us he was getting married. He didn't even give us the chance to be there if we'd wanted to. He just completely erased us from that moment. I remember calling him crying, basically screaming at him, asking him how he could do that to us, and he just said he hadn't wanted to complicate things, that we were too young to understand, that Michelle and her daughters needed that special day. He didn't even apologize, just made excuses. That was the first time Emily and I said, enough is enough. And we blocked him from everything. Phone, social media, everything. My mom completely supported us, told us if we wanted to cut contact with him that was fine, that she wasn't going to force us to have a relationship with someone who hurt us like that. And honestly, the next few years were more peaceful without him. It still hurt. There were still moments when I thought about what could have been if he'd been different. But at least he wasn't constantly disappointing us. Like 6 years went by like that, without talking to him, without knowing anything about him except for what my aunt would tell us occasionally because she was still in contact with my dad's family, my grandmother and stuff. And then I met Ryan. I was 24 when I met him at a work conference, and from the beginning, he was different. Like, he actually listened to me, made me feel important, valued, everything my father never made me feel. We started dating, and after about a year and a half, he proposed to me. It was on the beach during a really beautiful sunset. All that romantic stuff. And obviously I said yes because I love him and want to spend my life with him. But when I started planning the wedding, this inevitable question came up. Do I invite my father or not? Ryan told me it was my decision, that he'd support me no matter what, but he also asked me if I wouldn't regret not giving him a chance. You know, if I wouldn't want him there when I walked down the aisle. Honestly, I didn't know what to do. There was a part of me that still loved my dad, or at least the idea of what a dad should be, and I thought, well, maybe enough years have passed. Maybe he's changed. Maybe this could be the moment to reconnect. So I unblocked him on Facebook. I didn't write to him or anything. I just wanted to see what he was doing, what his life was like, and what I saw destroyed me in a way I didn't expect. His profile was full of photos with Michelle, Isabella, and Natalie. Like, hundreds of photos of family vacations to incredible places. Disney, Europe, the beach. Expensive places he never took Emily and me. There were photos of extravagant birthdays with elaborate decorations and expensive gifts. There were photos of graduations where he was smiling proudly with Isabella and Natalie, hugging them, looking at them like they were the most important thing in the world. And there was this one photo in particular that killed me. It was from Natalie's 18th birthday, and my dad was putting a necklace around her neck, and in the caption it said something like, "So proud to give you Grandma's necklace. I know she'd be happy to see you wear it." That necklace was from my grandmother, my dad's mom, who had died when I was 12. She had always told me that necklace was for me or Emily, that it was a family heirloom that was passed down from generation to generation. And he gave it to Natalie, a girl who wasn't even his biological daughter, while Emily and I never received anything from Grandma. I cried so much that night that Ryan didn't know what to do. He just held me while I showed him the photos and explained what that necklace meant. It wasn't just the necklace. You understand? It was everything it represented. It was proof that he had chosen those girls over us, that he could be the loving and present father we always wanted, but only with them, not with us. And then I discovered more things. Because once I started looking, I couldn't stop. Turns out my aunt confirmed that Richard was paying for Isabella and Natalie's entire college education, super expensive private universities, like $50,000 a year each. When Emily and I asked him for help with college years ago, he told us he couldn't, that he didn't have the money, that we had to get student loans or scholarships. Emily ended up working 2 jobs to pay for her degree and still has debt, and I did the same. We broke our backs working and studying at the same time, while Isabella and Natalie apparently didn't have to worry about anything because Dad was there to save them. What really pushed me over the edge was when I saw he had organized this super elaborate birthday party for both girls, because their birthdays are close together, with a DJ, catering, professional decoration, the whole thing. And that party was like 2 days after my 26th birthday. My birthday that he didn't mention, not a call, not a message, nothing. But he could spend thousands of dollars on a party for them. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, and I decided to write him a letter. I couldn't keep all this inside anymore. I needed him to know how I felt, how he had hurt us. I wrote him everything. I mean, everything. I wrote about how he made me feel as a child, about how we were never enough for him, about the divorce and how he didn't even tell us about his wedding, about Grandma's necklace, about college, about the ignored birthdays while he celebrated his stepdaughters, everything. I told him I had seen his Facebook, that I knew exactly what kind of father he could be when he wanted to, and that it hurt to know he just hadn't wanted to be that with us. I ended the letter saying I just wanted to know why, that I just wanted to understand what we had done wrong to make him hate us so much. I sent him the letter by certified mail to make sure he received it. 2 weeks went by and I didn't get a response from him, but I did from Michelle. She wrote me this long, angry email saying I was ungrateful, that my father had done the best he could with us, that we were difficult and resentful children, that Isabella and Natalie were sweet and appreciative unlike us, that I should be grateful he even paid child support when we were minors, and that I was exhausting him with all this drama from the past. Not a word from my father, just this woman defending him and attacking me. I forwarded the email to my mom and Emily, and my mom was furious. She wanted to call Richard and yell at him, but I asked her not to, that it wasn't worth it anymore. Emily was hurt too, but less surprised than me. I think she had already accepted a long time ago that our father was a lost cause. Like 2 months after that, Emily called me saying Richard had contacted her, asking for my number because he wanted to talk to me. She didn't give it to him, but she asked him what he wanted, and he told her he had heard about my engagement and wanted to come to my wedding, that he wanted to walk me down the aisle. Emily told me, and I honestly didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Like, seriously? After all this, he thought he could just show up at my wedding like nothing happened? He hadn't called me directly, hadn't apologized for the letter or for years of neglect. He just wanted his father of the bride moment for the photos, I guess. I spent weeks not being able to sleep well, turning the decision over and over in my mind. Ryan told me to do what felt right, that it was my day and no one else had to decide for me. My mom told me she'd walk me down the aisle if I wanted, that I didn't need Richard for that. Emily told me she'd support me no matter what I decided, but not to do it just because I felt I should, to only do it if I really wanted him there. I talked to my therapist about this. Yes, I started therapy after all this drama because I needed to process so many things. And she asked me, do you want him there because you really want him, or because you feel it's what you're supposed to do? And that's when I realized I didn't want him there. Not really. I wanted the father I never had to be there. I wanted the version of him I saw in the photos with Isabella and Natalie to be there, but that man didn't exist for me, and forcing him to be at my wedding wasn't going to change that. I decided not to invite him. I asked Emily to tell him my decision was final, and I didn't want him trying to contact me again. She did, and apparently he was angry. He said something to Emily about how I was dramatic and resentful, but honestly, I didn't care anymore. I kept planning my wedding, and my mom was with me every step of the way, helping me choose the dress, the flowers, the menu, everything. Ryan was incredible too. He never pressured me about my father's decision. He just reminded me that what mattered was that we were getting married because we loved each other. The wedding day arrived and it was beautiful. Seriously. We got married in this gorgeous garden with flowers everywhere. The weather was perfect. All our friends and family who mattered were there. When it was time to walk down the aisle, my mom took my arm. She had tears in her eyes but was smiling, and she whispered to me, "I'm so proud of you, my love." And I felt like I was going to cry too, but I held back because I didn't want to ruin my makeup. We walked together to where Ryan was waiting for me, and he was crying too. I couldn't help but laugh a little because he looked so cute standing there all emotional. The ceremony was perfect. We said our vows. We kissed. Everyone applauded. And when we were walking back down the aisle as husband and wife, I felt this peace I hadn't felt in months. Like, this is exactly how it should be. No drama, no people who shouldn't be there. The reception was incredible. We danced, we ate, we toasted. Emily gave a super emotional speech about how happy she was to see me, so happy. My mom toasted to us. Ryan's friends told embarrassing stories about him. Everything was perfect. I didn't think about my father once during the whole day. Honestly. I was too busy enjoying the moment with the people who had always been there for me. The next day, while Ryan and I were packing for the honeymoon, Emily called me and told me Richard had called her on my wedding day, like mid-afternoon, asking how everything had gone. She told him it had been beautiful and that I looked happy, and he supposedly said, "Tell her I'm proud of her." Emily asked me if I wanted her to pass along the message, and I told her, "Honestly, no, I don't need to hear that from him anymore. It's too little too late, you know? You can't ignore someone for years, hurt them over and over, and then expect a secondhand message of pride to fix everything." The honeymoon was amazing. We went to Greece for 2 weeks, completely disconnected from all the drama, just enjoyed being together as newlyweds, exploring new cities, eating delicious food, swimming in crystal clear waters. When we got back, we started our married life. We moved to a bigger apartment. I started a new job. Everything was going well. And then, like 3 months after the wedding, my aunt called me again. And from the way she started the conversation, I knew she had news I didn't want to hear. She told me Richard was having health problems. Something with his heart, apparently, that he'd been in the hospital for a few days but was home recovering now. She said Michelle had mentioned that he'd been asking about me, that he wanted to know how I was doing. My aunt clearly expected me to say I was going to call him or visit him, but I didn't. I told her thanks for letting me know. I hope he gets better. And that was it. She tried to insist a little, saying things like, "He's your father, life is short. What if something happens to him and you never made peace?" But I'd heard all that before and it didn't affect me like it used to. The truth is, I've had to make peace with myself, with the fact that I'm never going to get the closure I want from him. I'm never going to receive the apology I deserve. He's never going to admit what he did wrong, or explain why he treated us that way. And it's okay? Or well, it's not okay. But I accept it. I've learned I can't wait for him to give me validation or closure. I have to give it to myself. My therapist says that's progress, and I guess she's right. There are still days when it hurts. There are still moments when I see other people with their fathers and I feel this pang in my chest. But it doesn't consume me like it used to. Ryan and I are doing well. We're building our own family now. And when we have kids someday, I know exactly what kind of father I want Ryan to be, and what kind of mother I want to be. Because I know perfectly well what I don't want to be. Emily's doing well too. She got married last year to her boyfriend, of several years, and obviously she didn't invite Richard either, and our mom walked her down the aisle too. It's weird but also comforting to know that we both went through the same thing, and that we have each other. Last week, Ryan asked me if I ever regretted not inviting my father to the wedding. If looking back, I would have done anything differently. I told him no, that it was the right decision, that my wedding was perfect because it was only surrounded by real love, not obligations or pretenses. He asked me if I thought I'd ever forgive him. And honestly, I don't know the answer to that. Maybe someday I can forgive him for me. Not for him. Just to let go of all this weight I've been carrying. But that day hasn't come yet, and I don't know if it will. And it's okay not to know, I think. Not everything has to have a perfect ending where everyone reconciles and is happy. Sometimes things are just complicated and painful and there's no clear resolution. And that's part of life too. I guess,